Hello again, and following on from my video yesterday, we've seen the FCA's publication of details of the trial um, relating to WealthTech and John Dance, and there was a little bit of difference between the way it was reported yesterday by some of the legal sites and the way that they've reported it. I think it's fair to take the FCA's publication as more accurate. Ostensibly, it appears that there's 6 of the 9 charges, 6 not guilty pleas entered, and 3 to follow. That's what it appears. But in many ways, that's a separate issue. John and his legal team are entitled to defend themselves in whatever way that they see fit within the parameters. Again, I'm going to look at this trial date of September 2027. I think it was always going to be Southwark. I think that was a given. But in the context of what I discussed yesterday in how I framed how this would be structured in the book Lost to the Races, and how that would work against the victims of this particular financial scandal. And I thought it worth thinking about a few other things. One, WealthTech, of course, and its sort of predecessors were headquartered in Newcastle. Newcastle's not my home city, but I know it very well. It's a well-resourced city, has as far as I'm aware, a decent Crown Court. And the backlogs, I understand, at Newcastle are significantly less than Southwark. And let's take another example. We can look at Leeds. The victims of the WealthTech scandal, many of them are based in and around Yorkshire. The FCA has an office in Leeds, and I understand that the backlogs in Leeds Crown Court are similarly lighter than Southwark. So it would be interesting if the FCA were to come out and explain their what I would interpret as a foregone conclusion that Southwark was going to be chosen in the context of the victims of the WealthTech scandal, which I'm sure would have preferred a much speedier course of justice. But I don't imagine there'll be sufficient accountability on them to do so. Another aspect I want to draw your attention to, and I've also covered this in previous videos. If you look at the announcement, and I've covered the use of narrative to frame events in public and to sort of distort the way that the public see things quite a lot through the series of videos, and the one that they're very keen on pushing out at the moment, and I pasted it in the description, is the blistering pace of the investigation, where against their own statistics they pretty much say, look, this investigation took this long against historic duration of this, and the speed of enforcement is improving, and so on and so forth. And you could look at that and think, well, yeah, that's quite comforting. It's how you measure success and failure in these things is open to debate, of course. But I do want to remind you that effectively the investigation should have started in July 2021. So look at the email warnings and the dialogue in the descriptions of videos 2 and 3. So that gives us a much longer duration, and over 6 years from the point of that contact to the trial, the scheduled trial in September 2027. So I would contend that's rather a long investigative period. It's just that they chose not to start it in July 2021 when they really should have done. Remember, I gave them 2 avenues to look at. One, full audit of the cash flows between the regulated part of the business and the the related LLPs, similar to what BDO have done. Quite a big undertaking, I do recognise from outset, but there was another easier course they could have taken, where I showed that the business, the DFM part, Vertum Asset Management, was making vastly inflated claims of assets under management, particularly as the largest client had pulled assets, to which I went to work for. All they needed to do was to jump on a plane, train, drive up to Newcastle and merely say, "Excuse me, please can you show us where these 250 million plus assets are held?" Effectively substantiate what you're claiming on your website. And that would have revealed the issue. And that was not done. Remember, there was also a skilled persons review commissioned by I think they appointed a company called Oculus. I wasn't working with Vertum Wealth Tech at the time, but I understand that was in 2022, so that was another opportunity missed. And the other interesting thing to notice is how when they started their investigation, they say now March 2023, they didn't contact me. The investigators didn't contact me until after the Times article that was run, exposing the fact that whistleblowers' concerns have been ignored for the best part of 2 years. That is when they contacted me. So it took them 6 months, effectively, in this blistering pace of investigation, where they hadn't even contacted the person who'd raised the concerns. They tried to patch that. The investigator tried to patch that by saying that there was confidentiality, and the intelligence brackets on unit didn't pass on, didn't make them aware, whatever, I assume using this patch as confidentiality, that I was the whistleblower. And when you consider that, that's complete nonsense. Firstly, because as I've posted in the descriptions of previous videos, in my last dialogue with the brackets on the intelligence unit, that they asked me if they wanted me to remain confidentiality, could they use my name? I said, yeah, no problem, use my name. I believe the integrity of the industry is at stake, so I waive my confidentiality. So that is, in my opinion, not true. And let's look at another example. Let's look at an example, hypothetical, that there is a very serious crime committed and the police launch an investigation, and they have one or a number of suspects. The first thing the police are going to do is they are going to gather as much intelligence as they can on those suspects or suspect, and that will involve everything. That will involve any complaints made to the police, whether they be anonymous or whatever. They're going to gather all the intelligence they can on those people within their organization. There won't be any confidentiality. It's ridiculous to assume that you would launch an investigation and not do a complete sweep of the entire organization to gather as much intelligence as quickly as you can to aid your investigation. Even if you lead us down that path of make-believe, confidentiality was waived. I waived it. It is not true that your investigation is very, very quick. Your investigation was a shambles. I had to effectively completely re-engineer your thinking. The questions I was asked were nothing more than shots in the dark. They were effectively like someone throwing darts in the dark. I had to re-engineer their thinking to try and put them on the right track. That is the reality. Very easy to prove. Don't feel I need to. I'd rather let them get on with the case. I won't be a part of that case, no matter what coercion comes my way. And for the reasons I've stated, I offered the FCA the chance to work with them in the legal process. And I said, all I require from you to do that is to make a full apology to the victims of the WealthTech scandal for the misleading statements you put out, i.e. the Chambers do the right thing speech, and also to apologise to them for the catastrophic range of failures. And if you do that, and you also work with HM Treasury to at least cover the costs of an audit that was not their fault, and try to work putting them at the top of the priorities, not inverting morality and putting it below the protection of the regulator and the remuneration of legal professionals, to try to alleviate some of the hardship, suffering, I will work with you willingly. They consistently, flatly refused to do that. So it wasn't possible to work with a regulator that was willing to mislead the public. That is why this position has arisen, and I would never have written Lost the Races, and I would not have published this series of videos had those things have happened. And as much as I wouldn't have relished being part of a case, I would have done so if they would have been honest. So I hope that clarifies the situation for you, and you now understand why I chose to write Lost to the Races, why I focused on themes like narrative, the use of time to amortize down opportunities for accountability, the inversion of morality, the sacrificing of clients on the altar of the FCA's secondary objective, and so on and so forth. And again, I have to state that I'm bitterly disappointed by this outcome for the victims of the WealthTech scandal. On the Vertum side, some of them I knew from the very start. I was immensely grateful for the support they gave to the business. I'm very, very upset in what they've had to go through. I only wish it could have been different. And I'm sure that there are other clients who I never met, perhaps via the Mallet Melville side or others, that are also greatly affected. I'm also very sorry for them. And I find it embarrassing that this is the best outcome our industry can engineer. It's deeply, deeply embarrassing. And you deserve better. And I, again, invite Rachel Reeves and Emma Reynolds to come out and say, if you're to cultivate this investment culture, how can you reassure consumers that you're asking to take more risk by offering them what we're told is going to be a reduced allocation to cash within an ISA wrapper to try and incentivize a greater use of the stocks and shares element? You know, what reassurances can you give these retail investors that a scandal like this will never happen again? Be honest, come out and do it. I don't think they will, but maybe the moon's made of cheese. Take care.